Hey, Kara, we can't hear you.
Hi. Sorry. Um, this is Kara with Senior and Disability Services, and I wanted to go ahead and welcome you to our webinar about the Harmony Data System special for our providers. And so we can hopefully get you introduced to some of the different things that you might see a care coordinator do and different work products that a care coordinator might bring forth to you. And I know some of us are care coordinators here in the audience, and that's perfectly fine. This webinar is open to everybody, and so we're welcoming everyone here. We have another session later on this week, which is we label it as for a hab provider, for the hab provider. But we'll cover some of those topics today. We'll see how far we get. There's nothing saying that we have to, go to the entire time, to the end of the time. So if we get our questions answered and things like that before that, that's okay too. So this is really just informational session for you to ask your questions and maybe hopefully learn a few new things about Harmony and the work that care coordinators are doing within it. So we did have a lot of people sign up. We had over 90 people sign up, and right now I see probably about half that joining. So let's take a few minutes to do a couple things and a few reminders for our webinars themselves, housekeeping stuff. So of course, your big screen there is the first page of a PowerPoint, if you will, the first slide. That's where the webinar is going to appear. So you don't want to get rid of that. That's your webinar. You could see me in the presentation. Um, if my video starts to interfere with bandwidth, I might turn it off. So don't worry, I'm still here. And I also have other training staff, our great team with us. I have Sina Fisher and Delight Mells um, here to serve you. If you want to pop in and say hi, you certainly can. If you don't want to, that's okay too. Hey, Delight. Thank you. Thanks for popping in. And seeing if you want to jump in, go ahead and just say hi to our audience here. And
Hi, I'm here, and I'm
awesome.
madly trying to finish up an example for you. And
Okay, great.
just a reminder that there are handouts for everybody. I see that we've got 3 in there right now. Eventually we'll have 4 as soon as I get it polished.
Okay, sounds awesome. Thank you, Sita.
Sure.
Give a big shout out to the training team for all the work to introduce Harmony to our world here. No small task. And thank you to Sina, Delight, and of course Cassandra, training team. Okay, so people are still joining. I would like you to practice a few things with me here. Of course, you're entering in a muted status, which means you can hear me talk, but you are not able to talk amongst yourselves or hear other audio. That keeps our phone lines nice and clean, or our computer lines nice and clean. But you can interact a few different ways. So if you want to practice that with me here real quick, if you could look on your taskbar, your control bar, if you could find a little icon that looks like a little hand, could you go ahead and hit that hand for me and just wave hello to us here. Give us a high five here this afternoon. Let me know that you can see me, you can hear me, and you can see the controls and everything looks okay. Go ahead and hit that hand, and it's actually raising a hand there. So occasionally I do ask people to raise their hand, so I just get a sense of the audience and ask an opinion question and things like that. So right now I'm just asking you to go ahead and practice and raise that hand so I know you know where it is. Okay. I do see a few duplicate names here. It's odd, but what happens on my screen is I see the name that you signed in with, the link that went to your email. Whatever name that was attached to is who I see on the list. So I see a couple duplicates here, but it's okay. It just means that you shared your link. I'm not sure who you are because you're all the same person. So if you want to give a little practice to your comment section or your question section, if you don't see that, you can go ahead and open that up by finding a red square with a white arrow in it and open it up, and it might say questions or something like that. If you want to sign in for me, go ahead. You say hi, you can say whatever you want. Tell us how the weather is where you are. Just type something into that question area. So once again, I know where it is and how to find it and how to use it and things like that. And you're welcome to sign in if you got a link shared with you, and there's a different name or whatever, you can just say, hey, it's me, and write your name. So that would be awesome. All right, great. Cold in Wrangell, I bet it is. Um, yes, handouts. There are. Hi, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for signing in. Awesome. Okay. Hi, everybody. Um, and you're the real genie. Yay. Okay, that sounds real good. So yeah, about the handouts, there is a section or a piece of your control bar where it should say handouts or something like that. You should be able to click on that and download what's there. So right now we have two. One of them is the presentation that we're going to show, and the other one is a handy dandy chart that'll help you when you're working on plans of care with care coordinators and you're working on the content on behalf of the person. And we'll have some others in there too. If you can't download them, it's not bad. It just means that it's either the bandwidth or maybe your device isn't set up to download anything. Maybe you're on a work device that doesn't like it when you download. That's perfectly okay. No big deal. We're happy to email it to you after the session. You're welcome to have a copy of anything we show. Okay. So right now there's just the presentation and that one chart, and then we'll have some other sample items for you to see there too. Okay, so first I want to ask a question so you get a chance to use the hand again. Let me find my attendees box here. I apologize. Sometimes I talk to myself a little bit during these sessions because I have just one screen and it's a little hard for me to locate everything amongst all the different tiles. And sometimes I just say, I'm looking for this and I'm looking for that. Just so you know, if I look funny, I'm looking around the screen, I'm just trying to find the right thing to show you. By show of hands, who here is a care coordinator? Just raise your hand if you're a care coordinator. Just trying to get a sense of how many care coordinators we have here today. All right. All right, great. We have a few care coordinators, so welcome to you. How many of us are a provider of services on the waiver service provider? Show us your hand. All right, great. Welcome to you, waiver service providers. All right, I'll go ahead and lower the hands. How many of us who are waiver service providers, we provide the habilitative services for folks who have those in their waiver, like the IDD or ISW or APTD or CCMC waivers? You provide the HAB services. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Is there anyone with us here today who is a residential service provider? Do you provide residential services, meaning out of home, like in a licensed assisted living home? Residential provider? Okay, great. Welcome to you. And how about personal care services? Is there anybody who provides personal care services through your agency? A couple of us. All right, awesome. Thank you. Some of us are agencies that do everything, so I understand that too. You might be just sitting there raising your hand, raising your hand. That's okay too. No worries on that. And then everybody else is probably just somebody else. So if you want to go ahead and raise your hand if you're not any of those, but somebody else just work affiliated with the whole story, go ahead and raise your hand. Some
And
other role.
I'd like to know if we have any recipients here. Anybody who receives these services, that'd be awesome.
Is there anybody who receives the services here?
Or as a parent or a family member who receives
Yeah,
services.
parent, family member, guardian, somebody like that. Okay, cool. All right. Once again, for those of us who recently joined us, some of us have duplicate names. If you shared your link, I wouldn't know the other person's name, so if you want to go ahead and sign in using the question area, you can go ahead and do that. Okay, so let me go ahead and get started here, and I'm going to show our PowerPoint and just walk us through this presentation. Hang on just one sec, and I'll get it all started. Okay, so today we're here to learn a bit about the Harmony data system for those of us who are targeted towards those of us who are doing services rather than care coordination, but all are welcome, of course. So what is the Harmony data system? What is it? It is Senior and Disability Services secure online website. It's a platform so approved users can view client files and submit information. It is only for the required procedures with SDS on behalf of the client. So it's like communication with SDS and ways to upload information so that we can co-establish a client file. Of course, our SDS staff, we review and respond to your submissions and ultimately maintain the file within SDS. So what are some of the limitations? So access to the Harmony data system is limited to certain provider types only. Okay, so this is not currently available to all provider types. We'll talk about who in just a second here. Approved users can only access permitted information. So to become an approved user, there's a few steps that you have to go through and an agreement document and some training. And that means that you understand the ramifications and responsibilities of being a Harmony user. And then when you are in Harmony as a Harmony user, that Harmony user can only see information that is permitted to them, such as a care coordinator to their caseload, something like that. It's not that everyone sees everybody at all. It's not possible to, to look past those things. You can only see people associated with that provider, that care coordinator, or other permitted provider, and then also providers that are serving that person. So even though it's an SDS system, with a few exceptions, other state departments and divisions do not use it, even though we might serve the same people. For example, it's not information central. The ombudsman's office may serve somebody, but they wouldn't have access to our data. So a lot of times people think that it's a central thing where everyone can see everyone. This is not the case at all. It is very specific for permitted use, and permitted means, we identify that this is the user, we know who you are, you've signed an agreement, things like that. It doesn't do record keeping for providers or any kind of archiving. We do get a lot of questions about that. If there's documents within Harmony, wouldn't that just be something that I could keep on file, so to speak? The state keeps it on file. I don't have to keep anything separate outside of Harmony as a client file. Well, it doesn't do that. You may see that as a user, if the user may see that, but it's not intended for that use. In other words, there could come a day when that particular user wouldn't be permitted to see that person's file anymore because they would, not be with them as a provider anymore. For example, they would not cease to be that provider's customer, if you will. And so for archiving purposes, since you have to keep records for 7 years since the date of service, an agency, care coordination agency, or other permitted agency would always have to keep a separate archive process. It doesn't generate form templates for agencies to use or agency purposes, and it does not manage a provider's workflow, okay? It also doesn't connect into TheraP or any of the other proprietary client service management software options or websites, okay? So those of us who use TheraP, it's great, no worries at all. It just doesn't it's not going to hook into Harmony in any way. It pretty much, you're going to find today that most of your practices stay the same when it comes to working with care coordinators and plans of care. All right. It is not a beefed up email system. It's not where, I would send documents or info to another agency. If I was a care coordinator and somebody was going to want to sign up with a different agency, I wouldn't be able to connect with that agency in Harmony. It's strictly just singleton, confidential client files. I would, of course, permit my care coordinator to share information about me in the traditional way with a release of information, and then become, depending on the service provider, become available to that service provider in Harmony. But not it's not an email between and amongst anybody, really. It's for client files, not used for cross communication. We'll still need to use DSM to email protected health information about the people we serve and between and amongst providers with permission, as we have been doing. So why are we doing this today? Our care coordinators are beginning to use Harmony. We are doing a lot of training, our team, and the care coordinator will complete training through a week-long series, usually of webinars, and then they'll become a full user of Harmony. The care coordinator will, of course, create a support plan in Harmony. They'll manage a client file of individuals on their caseload in Harmony. My guesstimate right now is about 30 care coordinators trained. So you will start to see traditional documents and Harmony generated ones as a provider. So we can help you understand what that looks like and give you some hints about working with particularly the habilitative services a little bit today, and then we'll probably give more time for that in our next webinar about the HAB services. To help you understand a care coordinator support plan work processes, and to help you understand new formatting for the support plan and the cost overview sheet. We know that you're accustomed to seeing certain forms, and then they're going to look a little bit different now. So who uses the Harmony data system? Of course, senior and disability services and staff. DPA uses it for info they use to serve recipients. Okay, so there's only certain information that DPA uses or sees in Harmony regarding people who are also engaged in services with senior and disability services, although the programs that we do. Assisted living licensing, same thing, info that they use to serve recipients, not everything about every person, just people that are using services together with senior and disabilities. Long-term care facility administrators, this would be your skilled nursing facilities. They are any other long-term care as well. If they're working with pretty much anybody in a long-term care, they'll be using the Harmony data system for their admissions and authorizations and reauthorizations. Our aging and disability resource centers use it, and of course our DDRC, our developmental disability resource centers, use it for person-centered intake and the initial DDRR registry forms that are done, basically the DD registry. So those forms that are done initial and then renewal for the registry itself through the DDRC. Our personal care services administrators use it to apply on behalf of people who want to receive PCS and work with their files regarding each person receiving PCS and renewal, applying for renewal and things like that of that service. And now care coordinators. So care coordinators will use it to manage a client's file and submit support plan or submit an application, submit a renewal, other kinds of communication that are done within Harmony about services, submit documents, upload documents in Harmony about services, required ones that you're used to. At this time, other provider types are not scheduled to use Harmony. Okay, so other provider types will not be a Harmony user. I'm going to stop and run to my questions here and see if I am caught up and if there are any questions right now at this moment. Let's see.
You are good, Kara.
Good so far, so good. Okay. You can see I'm kind of looking for little tiny words.
Yeah, you're
All
good.
right. Thank you. You might see Delight and Sina answering questions too, like right directly to you by text. So that's why we're all here to give you information. So awesome. So let's see a few ways that care coordinators do work in harmony. What do they do and what's it kind of like, right? So we're not demonstrating within Harmony, we're just showing you just kind of an intro as to what they do, okay? So in Harmony, a care coordinator can see a caseload. And by the way, none of this information is actual real information. It is just sample information that we use for training. So there's people names and numbers and things like that are not real. These are sample, all right? So if a care coordinator has their caseload, they'll see a list of people somewhat like this. It'll show their start date, case numbers, and things like that. And it'll allow them to view their record. Other things that they can see would be it's sort of like sorting info regarding their caseload, the different tabs here. So the highlighted tab is consumers, and there's other tabs that they could check out if they wanted to look into different aspects of their caseload like that, right? So they can see that list of their individuals. So here they don't look like names, but this is where the consumer name would be, their status, if they were done, their end date, and if they were all kinds of different information here. And they could click onto their whole record. So in Harmony, this is a picture of the main front page, if you will, of a client file, a fake client, not a real person at all. But this is what a client file looks like to a care coordinator. They would have their demographics as the front top sheet of it, and it's just kind of like a file folder with the tabs, as you can see here, for this particular person whose name is May, APDD Training 1, their demographics, the division with, of course, with SDS, the programs that they're in or eligible for, notes about that person. Notes are a way that a care coordinator uploads different documents and that they receive different documents from SDS. It's as attachments. Forms, support plans, providers for that person, authorizations, if they have appointments for assessments, things like that, diagnosis, medication. Case relations would be people who are involved with that person, like a guardian or a legal rep or something like that. Eligibility, registry, fair hearings, and things like that. So this is just a shot of a care coordinator's view. Question says, is Harmony something that case managers can sign up for that are not a part of a care coordination agency? No, it's only for a certified and enrolled care coordinator. So we're not doing case managers or any other service providers other than PCS administrators, long-term care, like skilled nursing facility providers, our ADRCs and DDRCs, and PCS admins. Okay. So what do they do? What does the care coordinator do? They develop and enter, for example, an application, the support plan, and amendments. So they upload the required documents. The provider, that's you, would participate on the planning team like you always have. You would provide the care coordinator with a summary of service outcomes as you have been accustomed to. We do get a lot of questions about that. We know that some of us are using things like TheraP, and they do provide, like a summary of achievement towards goals and things like that. But we wouldn't be we're not looking for a printout of that from that software. We're looking for an actual summary, like a narrative summary of the outcomes of the services. You would contribute or otherwise support the objectives and interventions for the habilitation services. You would be working with the same forms you're used to in whatever capacity that is, whatever role, release of information, verification of diagnosis, your QDC, qualifying diagnosis certification form, medical documentation, guardianship, power of attorney forms, and then the support plan will be signed by individuals, legal reps, and of course you, the provider. So this is kind of what's not changing. Those things are not changing, okay? You'll still be working with care coordinators for documents like that, and there's not very much different. For a support plan, the care coordinator will enter information within Harmony into what we call a form, which is a support plan form. They fill it out. There's a special way they fill it out for our habilitation services, just for those, but it's very much like our current support plan form, but as an online version. So they print or create a PDF, which is just a document that they can email to you using secure email, or they could print it out and bring it to you, or mail it, or print it out and fax it. Any of those protected ways to send a document like that, just like we do now. It's going to get printed out. Providers of individuals and legal reps are going to sign it. This is called a report in Harmony. It's just another word for printing it out or printing it to a PDF, creating a PDF out of it. So if you hear people talk about report, it's really not like a report like you think of. It's not really reporting anything. It's just printing out the plan. So at this point, we can take a look at an example support plan. And I'll go ahead and freeze my screen and I'll find that. Training staff, want to jump in for anything or add anything right now? Go ahead.
Just saying the one that you're going to pull up is definitely a sample plan. It says
Okay.
sample plan, Jesse, I think. And so some things in it will not make sense, right? So don't overanalyze it. This is just so that you can see what's going on, what the plan report looks like. And Kara's going to go through it, and we're here to really empower you as providers to see, oh, this is what it looks like, and it's okay, because we've had a few instances of pushback of people going, this doesn't look like the normal support plan. So yeah, it's a little bit different, but similar enough. And yeah, that's the one, right one.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Sina.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So here is a support plan, and this is, of course, entirely fictitious information that populates the plan. We're showing you the format so that you can understand a little bit more about what it's going to look like when it's presented to you in either a paper form or perhaps a PDF form so that you can check it out. So we have the cover sheet there. Person-centered support plan. It will have, of course, their information in the header. And then this looks pretty familiar, or should look familiar to those of us who have worked with a waiver support plan. This is APDD. All right, your basic demographics here, section 1 information, means of communication, address, phone, things like that. The person's legal rep, right? Information like that. And then their emergency contact, which came down a little bit on the next page, and that's okay. Same as legal rep. If they have a school, this is where this information would go. And there is a copy of this in your downloads, but we can also send you this. Again, it's just as a model to look at. If you haven't seen one yet, you'll see one that looks like this. Okay, so an individual's diagnosis and medical would be in section 2. And
So,
a health
and that's, I'm going to put
yes,
in there in the diagnosis. This is it's really a snapshot. It doesn't list all the person's diagnoses, only what we've marked as primary. The person may have multiple other diagnoses and they're not listed here. So if you don't see it there, don't panic. It's in the system. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Question says, will we be able to format to get rid of extra space or to group information together?
That really depends on your PDF program, if you will, because this is saved as a PDF, and whatever software you're using to manage PDFs may allow you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
As a care coordinator, sorry. Once the care coordinator saved and sent it for signatures, then no, it shouldn't be able to be modified. Only care coordinators
Right.
can modify.
Yeah, it's limited to, we'll talk about when we get to the signatures part, we'll talk about PDF and, PDF management software and things like that. Okay, so here we have our description. Let me go back
And
up
the
here for a second.
summary of health. This is the
Summary
health
of health
summary.
description.
And see, things like that do happen in the spacing. So like the following paragraph after the header line was very large, so it bounced it to the next page. It happens. It's the software limitation.
So health summary, and it's nice. It provides the dates. It's pretty comprehensive.
It actually puts the dates in if the care coordinator puts the date in. This is where
Right.
we'd like to see it formatted. This is really helpful. But sometimes
Right.
this whole summary is just a paragraph. Depends on the CC style.
Really depends, yeah. So today we're not really we're able to answer basic questions, but as far as, the content of a plan of care, we're going to go light on that today, really. Other than the essence and basic questions that we get, or kind of like repetitive questions that we get, or frequent questions, I should say. But yes, and folks pretty much know a health summary is a picture of their last year. So if dates are there with different, providers, then we love that. So it helps us understand that how they've journeyed through that year. Their emergency response part and the emergency response plan. So here is where a care coordinator would enter the emergency response plan.
I'm going to say this is different than what people have seen in the past. This is a series of 4 questions that have been on our support plan for, 10 years now. But we've seen them answered in one kind of cut and paste statement a lot of times. So now the care coordinator is required to answer these 4 questions for the individual, including the last one, which is if you scroll down, Kara, says, indicate what the person feels. How do they feel about their emergency plan? This is really not a backup plan anymore. This is their emergency plan. What is their own concern about their own health and safety? And this is a big one. CMS is looking at us and looking at our plans for an answer to this question. This is a person-centered plan, and oftentimes this question isn't answered. How does the person feel about their emergency plan? Do they feel confident? Do they know what to do? What are they concerned about? So you may be receiving, as a provider of services, queries from the care coordinator. How did you help this client understand what will happen in an emergency? Did you do anything? Okay, so this is the new-ish feature.
New, but yet traditional. We have taught to these things for quite a while. Okay, so medical contacts in this table, current medications.
And these will be filled out more than what you're actually seeing in the sample here. I just didn't take the time to get and do all of them.
Right. So when a care coordinator makes a plan like this, much of what they're entering in the client file, like we looked at before, in the plan form, it will populate onto the plan itself. So, there's some inner workings of the Harmony system that does that, all for the care coordinator. This is what they do. Adaptive medical equipment, DME, SME. Okay. Listing and use are available. Listed adaptive equipment needed, environmental modifications, and needed. And then we see our personal profile. Again, not much of this is too different. The person will identify their personal goal, and they request services to meet their needs and achieve expected outcomes. So this person wants to focus on independent living skills and working with DVR. Okay, so we've got this narrative that supports its information about overall life situation, home environment, and relationships. It describes their strengths and their goals and things that have been difficult for them, who they rely on for everyday life, what they enjoy, what they don't like, uh, areas that they need to work. They need more work to be more independent. Living situation, if that's part of their story, which it always is, but just a nice comprehensive viewpoint of that person's daily life and pertinent things that ping off the services that are going to be requested in the plan. So progress toward previous goals, it says I've attached data from TheraP, which shows the number of times that Jesse has worked on a particular goal, right? So here we have an example of attaching data, but yet there's a significant amount of information that's not just throwing it out there with a chart of numbers. And we have to understand what that is. Go ahead.
Right. So really, I got to doing this as kind of a copy and paste from a previous like Word version of a plan. And this is actually an example of what we don't want to see. We want to see if there's data from TheraP, what we'd like to see is the service, the goal statement, and how was it accomplished, not a copy of all the objectives and then a whole nother section of what, no, care coordinators will be making a summary of how were these things done, right? So for our service providers out there, when they just get this massive amount of that isn't really what we're looking for. We're looking for a summary. How did they accomplish, right? So that's really, really important for providers to understand that the care coordinators need that early because they have to turn these plans in timely and they have to go through all of that data and figure out what was our progress? Did we have a 10% progress? Did we have a 2 out of 10 progress? However, we're quantifying that. Because we tend to get an awful lot at the division that we have to then wade through and try to figure out that there was progress there. So if you could really help us out by determining what the progress was in a summary format, that's where we want this to go. So what you're seeing in the sample plan is what we actually don't want to see, but I didn't have time to make a really good example. Sorry.
Okay.
Thanks, Julie, for asking. I didn't really have a time to make a good example, but we'll get you one.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. Today we're trying to show you what you're going to see, not go delving into content of what we want for the plan necessarily, unless there's just a whole lot of, questions about it. There was a question about what was up with the question marks in the equipment section. That was just copy and paste. A care coordinator could edit those out. That was up here, right? So it's check boxes or copy paste from a previous plan, and that would show up like that. But a care coordinator would look at that and they could edit those out so that it doesn't seem so confusing. Okay, so we have for a supported living, we have a habilitative goal here. Again, it does talk about what the person wants to achieve and what they want to work on within that particular goal. And then there's another one about communicating, and there's some objectives there about communicating and how to get strength on that for that particular person. And these are all associated with our habilitative service of supported living. All right.
This is just part of the personal profile that Kara's scrolling through right here.
Desirable future outcomes. So what the person would like to see happen for them. Their social environment. And this is all pretty comprehensive here. Functional abilities and strengths from last year's plan included for staff training. So this is something that a care coordinator could possibly do is bring in information from the previous plan as long as it is applicable to the current plan, and change it up as well. Strengths, they can challenges but continue to make progress. Everybody has strengths, and things they need to do better and things that challenge them. And this is just presented in a listing format here in this particular profile. Situational limits and or obstacles. Again, a care coordinator would be the one to write this and provide the summary and ultimately request the services on the person's behalf so that they could be supported the way they want, person-centered way. Okay, so what works and doesn't work when providing direct support? It could be brought in from the previous plan year if that is applicable to that person. So again, it's actually interesting and good to know because there's each plan is, of course, each plan has been available even now with the paper/digital paper that we use right now, but it's kind of, it's good because then it's embedded within our Harmony system. We can, as a care coordinator, look into it and see things that work, things that should be continued, or things that should be refreshed and do something different. And we can also see that story of their progress. A care coordinator could see that story of their progress. Things that don't work.
So what I'd like you to see here is that there is formatting available. So each of these blocks under, the headers, critical behavior, what works, what doesn't work, our standard personal profile prompts, they have up to 50,000 characters that they can put in there. And things are formatted. You see bullet points here that actually has to be done in a Word document and then copy and paste it over. But we saw tables in here. We see bolding and italicizing. We also have color, although we caution you with color because many people are colorblind. Also, people that are reading the plan, maybe using a screen reader, and screen readers don't do well with colored text. But that's all things that a care coordinator can do to draw attention to making this support plan usable navigationally so that really, we get it. A lot of direct support professionals don't pick up the service plan. They don't know it's there. People don't read their own plans, that sort of thing. But we try to make it's the care coordinator's job to make this plan, it's very difficult, approachable and usable for multiple audiences. The state uses it for authorizing services. People use it for delivering services. Providers use it for their business needs. Is this something that we can provide these services? Is it worded that way? Is this how much service are we doing? All of these things go into the support plan. So yeah, just keep scrolling, Kara. We just really want you to see that we worked hard to make this a document that is usable for everyone, but there's of course limitations. You see, as she's getting to assessments reviewed, we've got extra spaces in there. I'll tell you, when I typed it in about 2 hours ago, there weren't any extra spaces, but they're showing up. So sometimes it works really great, and sometimes it translates into a PDF a little funky. If you keep going, you see where it says the VOD is on here. We bolded that on purpose. I did as the care coordinator, so that's easy for the reviewer to see. So you might see things like that, and they're like, why do that? Well, remember, this document is a multi-audience document. Many people use it. This is 13 out of 24 pages, and it's not even really a complete plan. Like, I don't have all the goals and objectives in there and stuff like that. Kara's getting to a summary of regular Medicaid. You see all sorts of stuff here. This could be community supports or natural supports, if the natural support is actually doing something like providing transportation regularly or meals regularly or something like that. Lots of things that could go into this area. And they're used to putting this in. It's just now they have a slot in the database system to put it in. And then we pull it, this report pulls it out of that slot and puts it here. Now, Kara, would you stop here for just a second and scroll up to the top of this, above chore and emergency response system, because these are now under non-waiver supports, because these are now provided by CFC supports. Okay, so we see we have, this is our section, summary of non-waiver supports and services. PTOT done by Peace Health, that's a regular Medicaid. NIMIT, that's a regular Medicaid thing. All right, It's not for social time. So that's what I mean. That's, it's not really jiving, okay? Because we wouldn't provide non-emergency medical transport for social time because it doesn't work like that. Anyway, community supports, we see there's another PT time at the city pool. And now we come down here and we see service. Oh, chore. Okay, that's a CFC service. So it's a non-waiver service now. PERS, monthly, same thing. So when the care coordinator puts it in, it's going to drop to a different spot on the plan report than you're used to seeing it. Okay. And now we get into non-habilitative waiver services. The first thing you usually see is care coordination, but you could see respite first now, or whatever other service, meals or something like that. So this is all about programming. We put the information, the care coordinator puts it in a block, and then it drops it to this plan in these blocks. So not so easy just to go in and, oh, move that here and move that there. No, it doesn't work that way because the software is developed to drop it in the report in a specific place, okay? Based on alphabetical is a big thing, right? But we see adult day services. In this case, we put in our care coordination services first, and then we put adult day services in, and that's why it listed this in this format, if you will. Order, that's what I'm trying to say. Okay. So under adult day, I didn't put any description, so it didn't print there. That's why it's blank. But if we go down to meals, care keeps scrolling. We'll see a description of how the service meets needs. Now I just threw something in there, but I also wanted that to be somewhat of an example of things that we should be seeing around meals. What do they like? What do they not like? What works for them? What doesn't? In the hopes that the servicing provider will look at this and go, oh yeah, that's right. Oh, no raisins or nuts for her, you know, because multi-service, multi-audience here, service provider as well as SDS authorization.
So these are pretty similar to what we're used to seeing. And thank you for the great description of how the plan is built from a care coordinator perspective and why we might see different things like open spaces or other things like that. It's a formatting thing within the software. So that is going to be how the plan is going to look. It's an official plan. You know, it's not possible to reformat it in a different way. It's more so working with the care coordinator to make sure the information that's important to the person and to how the service is going to be delivered is on there. And so this one has a habilitative service section. The wording is the same, the requirements are the same. Nothing has changed about the limitations of regulation for the services or anything, okay? We'll talk about goals and objectives in a bit here. We'll kind of flesh out a little bit better. Out of home residential, this particular person is not using out of home residential. But if they were, you would see that they would have that place listed and we would still have the chart that you're accustomed to. Sina, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't notice that the goals weren't linked. That's why they're blank underneath that.
That's okay. We have other things to show so folks can understand. I think it'll be all right. Okay, so there's the chart that tells the services for an out-of-home residential provider to do is still there, should they have one. The list of the planning team and all the information about that planning team is the same kind of construct that you're used to, okay? And then our service providers may extend down into another page or however many there are, okay? Then we have our choice area where the person will check their statement indicating their choices. And this is all the work of a care coordinator, all right? What they choose to receive, person will check that, make their choices evident. And then signatures, and this is another place where a provider is interested in the fact that they'll be signing the signature sheet. Okay, so a signature sheet, I mean, over the years we have received separate signature sheets. For example, the entire plan is developed and then a signature sheet is presented to somebody to sign even though they've read the plan, we don't expect one long document. We just expect one long document with the appropriate signature. So we may get a few different signature sheets. That's been acceptable, continues to be acceptable. Your home and community-based agency representative, the person that attended the planning team, and if I get this right, let me know. If I get it wrong, jump in, training team. But the person that's on the planning team, their name is going to be printed here because that's how the form populates. But if there's a different person who's going to sign as that HCB agency representative, that's perfectly okay. They can sign and they can put their name right here. They could print it with their pen or pencil, or however they're not pencil, they want to sign it. They're going to print their name, or it could be entered. You know, a care coordinator could enter it there depending on how they're working with their PDF. We have heard that folks are concerned that it's somebody's name that's not mine. Like, I'm the chore provider. Anna Chore went to the meeting, but I'm Kara Chore or Kara Smith or whatever, and that person's printed name is there, and I'm uncomfortable to sign it. It's still okay to sign it as long as you're with that agency. You can print your name and you can sign. Okay. Did I get it right? Training team, is that pretty much it?
Yes, that's correct. You don't need to, you don't even need to line it out. You just put your name above, say, Anna Chore. You put,
Okay.
Kara Smith. Same with this. It's still with community connections. Just stay in your line, okay?
Okay, and a care coordinator has added a comment that the backup care coordinator on the planning team list is new. So I'd have to go back to that, but
So I can address that. So the only
yeah.
place on the plan that the backup care coordinator is present is under that planning team. Although we realize that the backup care coordinator is not generally part of the planning team. We know that. But the software limit kind of limited us to, that was the only place we could put it. So we put it there, but you'll notice they don't print on the signature page. So
Okay, so here they are. Put in Delight as the example there. And then when we get down to the signature page, sorry if I'm making everybody dizzy, go down the signature page, they don't appear. So, all right. Thank you for the explanation. Makes sense. So yeah, I mean, it has its greatness and it has its differentness that we'll get used to. But this is the presentation of the plan of care as created through the Harmony system. All right, so I think we did our questions ongoing here. Let me see. Let me get back to my PowerPoint here.
Okay.
All right.
So while Kara's doing that, I'll throw out there to you that it's possible that you'll receive this plan through DSM, right? Your coordinator sends it to you, and you'll receive maybe a separate signature page, which would just be page 23 of 24, so the second to the last page. You can apply your signature there and send back just that page to the care coordinator. The care coordinator will then take and collate all the documents together to send it in. You still need to keep a copy, but you will be getting a copy of the approved support plan because, as we all know, we make signature changes and we send it all in and whatnot, and then SDS says, hey, we need more information. Something changes. So always make sure that what you're keeping on your file, as Kara said at the very beginning, we have 7 years to keep this. Keep it in your own agency files. Don't rely on it being in Harmony. Because if you change as a provider for that person, you'll no longer have access to their records. So make sure you keep it in your own file. Okay.
Question says, is the SDS signature now only on the back page, not on a cover sheet any longer?
Only on, okay. Not on the cover sheet. Right. There's no signatures on the cover sheet. So one thing that did kind of change is that the SDS authorizing signature is at the top of our signature page instead of at the bottom, because we didn't want it to roll onto another page. So we put our SDS authorizing reviewer, who authorizes the plan, is at the top of that signature page. There is nothing on the cover sheet.
I think maybe they may be asking about the overview sheet and
Cost sheet.
concern. Yeah, thinking about it as a cover sheet when it's circulated.
Right, so
And there,
see our block there. Yeah, thanks, Delight.
and remember, there's going to be a time where we're going to still circulate the old plan and the old overview sheets and the Harmony sheets, the stuff that's coming out of Harmony, because we're onboarding care coordinators. You know, it's as we go. We're adding more and more people in there, so it's not like a switch that gets flipped tomorrow and you're going to see all brand new everything tomorrow. It's going to be a gradual trickle, so we want you guys to just be aware of that. So some of the procedures that are happening with the paper processes through DSM are going to be the same, but you're going to slowly see things move more and more into Harmony, where you'll see the Harmony productions or Harmony produced documents.
Okay, so I have my slide which says cost overview sheet. Here is a Harmony generated cost overview sheet for you to see, a sample one. And I'll try to make it a little bigger. That might be too big. Okay. So a cost overview sheet looks like this. So the cost of the plan of care. This is the amount of all units that are potentially authorized. This is what the person is requesting in a list form by the amount of units for this plan. And so cost overview sheet is generated from the system. Again, it's not, a total budget allotment at that point. When we propose it, when we turn it in for approval, it's a proposed thing. When it's approved, then units may or may not be different. And there's a difference between what an agency actually bills for and what's authorized in a plan. So it's just a summary of the units that are requested in the plan. And so this is what it'll look like. It won't be, it's no longer an Excel. It'll just be the services that are requested on the plan on the overview. Anything
Sure.
to
And
add?
again, yeah, again, this is a sample, and so you'll notice that the units are like 312.86. It doesn't, it would be a whole number. It would be 312 or 1 or 12, right? Yeah, again, sample plan, sample system. It does that sometimes. I just like, you guys go get it. You get it. It's okay. You shouldn't generally see it as a 0.29 or a 0.43. It should be a round number.
Okay. So let me freeze on this screen here. And I'll go back to my PowerPoint. And I believe at this point I just had Q&A. So we're up to the top of the hour, 2 o'clock hour. I'm prepared to give us an intro to the habilitation services. But what are your questions that you have at this point? Any questions that we haven't already heard and answered so far? So far, so good. All right, so while I'm talking, you can continue to think of your questions and put them in. Don't worry, it's okay. We'll go over this part a little quick. Support plan and habilitative services, habilitation, habilitative, same thing. And let me start my slideshow from here. And we have put in your handouts, I believe, yes, a chart that'll help you. If you provide habilitation services, it'll help you in your planning process, okay? So for the habilitative services, Harmony has prompts for the care coordinator that helps develop the service. Every service is tied to a need, a goal, objective, and an intervention. So these are things that we're familiar with, except maybe not need. So we're familiar with goal, we're familiar with objective, which is the steps the person takes towards the goal, and we're familiar with interventions, which is what the staff does to assist that person with their objectives. The care coordinator selects a built-in Harmony prompt for each need, goal, objective, and intervention. There are prompt phrases, and what it does is when we select a prompt phrase, it opens up a text area where the care coordinator puts specific narrative in about that person. Prompt phrases are best thought of as like titles for the paragraph that you would write about the person that's specific to that person, or perhaps discussion points to help develop services. Leaving the plan with just the prompt phrases alone, though that is not accepted as an element of a person-centered plan, that would actually cause the plan to be returned because there's an explanation of what will be done underneath each of those or what it means to the person or the person's goal. It's really just like labeling that opens up the different fields. So why do we do that? Why is it that way? So part of what we do with this system is gather data. We want to make our programs better to serve people better and work with all of our different resources better. So in the future, we'll be able to provide aggregate reports, meaning like a confidential aggregate reports. It's not reports about a particular person, but how many people benefited from a particular service. How many people were using this particular intervention code or something like that. Really not, specific to each person, but just gathered up information that doesn't have to do with individuals as, granular like that. So that is a really good piece of what we do and helps us really answer to our overarching funding systems, both internal and at the federal level, about the performance of our programs in Alaska. So we'll look at what those are in just a second here. So what they do is they have needs, and the prompts look like this. A need, and the care coordinator would select one. And as you can see, there's an ID, which says it's just a code number for that particular need. So a person has a need for assistance in mobility or motor skills, or communication, or number 7, economic self-sufficiency, vocation skills, health and safety, critical behaviors. Any of these things could be selected as a need for that person. And what we should be doing is thinking about that person individually and thinking of these as a titling description or a prompt to generate the conversation about that person's goals, objectives, and interventions.
And this is Sina, and I will say that this is not a new list. This list of needs is contained in the current plan template, and it has been for over 10 years. If you look at your sample plan, I'm not going to have Kara go to it, but on your sample plan, it is right at the top of habilitation services on page 18. It says habilitation services support persons to acquire, build, or retain skills in the following areas. These are the needs that you see translated here. Included but not limited to, and motor skills, self-care, communication, learning, blah, blah, blah. All right, this comes straight out of our regulation set. So that's where we found these needs that will now match to a goal code.
You're right. It was always there in list form on the older forms. So this is just establishing these as a way in to what the story of the plan has and the request of the plan, and what it's going to do for that person. So it's a different way of looking at it. But the care coordinator selects one of these needs, and then the goals are tied to the need. Okay, so I couldn't show you a screenshot of every single goal that is tied to the need. And it's again, this is not applying a goal onto a person. This is a description and a prompt for the writing that would, or a title, if you will, for the writing that would come after it in a text area for the care coordinator to enter that person's goal, their person-centered goal. We'll look at a document here that it's in your handouts too that will help you.
And important to note that this does not, it's a prompt. It does not replace the goal statement.
If we see that left just to the prompts, then it gets returned because it's not a person-centered plan. It's not done, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so under need, this is what a care coordinator would see to start filling in. They would select a goal to say whether it's new or continued, and then they would search for a goal and its goal code would pop up and they could add information here. They would talk about, it actually shows you here how it links to services, and it includes how, and we need still to know how it will be recorded and measured for each objective and how the objectives will be reviewed and evaluated. Okay, so this is like, we didn't get to objectives and interventions yet, but this is a picture of how a care coordinator would enter into this information for a HAB service in the plan. For objectives, they kind of nest upon each other here. There's a need and then goal. And as you can see here in the sample screenshot, says sustain, uphold, continue, preserve independence in a chosen home setting. Jesse will continue to work, and there's much more written there. It's just this is a listing of the goals, objectives, and interventions. Partial physical assistance to complete. Caregivers will assist Jesse in standing in her place. And there would be more written after that. Again, this is just a summary. This has a few objectives with interventions underneath them. So they get tied together as the care coordinator builds that plan. Codes for intervention or prompts for intervention are things like this: design curriculum with, direct instruction, hand over hand, partial physical assistance, picture exchange. These are new, okay, in our world of thought about describing interventions. Probably not so new for our providers who are always working with this. Again, this is a title to enter in information specifically about how staff will do this, and hopefully a discussion point to develop pretty comprehensive interventions that really work, you know, for the people we serve and for the staff to understand, right? And they do have different coding numbers to them, and that's just for measuring, again, to get those aggregate measurements at a future date. It's just internal working within Harmony. All right. The care coordinator selects the prompt that fits the need, goal, objective, or intervention. They open the text field. We pretty much already said this: a plan without the narrative explanations are not accepted. And the plan report, which is just a printout or a PDF of the plan, will show the selections and the narrative. The care coordinators can enter other info in other areas, specific instructions for staff, which we did see in an example, the example that we looked at earlier. So I'm going to freeze on my Q&A here, so you can think about your questions, whether it's regarding the habilitation services or others, other things we reviewed, and I will call forth one of the documents that we put into your handouts here, which is about our HAB services, our needs, goals, and intervention codes document. And we'll take a look at that so that you can start to envision how this would help you have conversation with your individual, your care coordinator, or family member. These are the codes, the plan, needs, goals, and interventions. We call it the job aid just because it helps a care coordinator organize this when they're doing a plan. But we believe it will help you in understanding the prompts so that you can start talking with the person who would get this habilitative service about how specifically we could accomplish this for, with you, right? What are some objectives that would work for you to increase or improve mobility skills in all settings? You can see that they're pretty general. We need that specific information to make it workable and to make it relevant to the person and to consider it a correct unit delivered to that person. But you could certainly use these to begin talking about what that would do. And a care coordinator uses it for that too. And this is in your handouts, and we can send you this as well by email. Need for health and safety. Goal, improve problem solving, improve coping, decrease behavior, increase or sustain safety skills. And then if we go down here, we'll see more needs. Our intervention codes here, our providers are probably pretty familiar with these, right? So we would select the one that matches best with what the intervention is going to be, and then flesh it out with the narrative in the plan. Okay. It's actually the end of it there. Questions? Okay. Is there a limit to the number of goals or objectives that can be entered in Harmony? There is not a limit that we've encountered so far, right? We don't think that there's a limit to that. And concern around goals and objectives. An example, I went to send the care coordinator the HAB plan. The care coordinator told me she didn't need goals and objectives, that we discussed with our individual just the progress summary. Choosing to use a different agency goals and a different agency's goals and objectives because Harmony asked them to use the same ones. Is this true? Are we no longer providing person-centered goals and objectives? Okay, so no, that's not true. I'm wondering how much of it is a misunderstanding in the communication, just that it's new. Okay. No, we are absolutely requiring person-centered, the person to identify their goal, the objectives that work with the person, the interventions that work for the person. That is what we're hopefully introducing to you here today, is that you know, this is a worksheet to help you put a title on a paragraph or a thought or a discussion that is to do with the person, so that this could be how we open up the different fields in the plan, right? So pick the one that best matches your situation or the person's situation or the person's needs, and just to try to give some words to that, right? So no, it is not absence of person-centeredness at all. We have to have it, or else it will not be considered complete. The care coordinator does need to have a summary of the previous year's progress, of course. Will the agency or the care coordinator enter the goals into Harmony support plan? The care coordinator does it. The care coordinator can certainly have you involved in the ways that you have been involved. And usually our care coordinator, the individual develops their goal. The care coordinator can suggest different ones that fit it to get to the next part. The provider develops objectives. A lot of the times they certainly do develop the interventions. So nothing has changed about that. The care coordinator enters it. Only the care coordinator is able to enter a support plan.
That kind of brings me to another point about we have many service agencies that provide PCS services and habilitation services. And so therefore you can see the entire consumer record, but there are PCS agencies that don't provide anything other than PCS. And there are agencies that only provide HAB services and don't provide PCS, so they don't have visibility. So if you happen to be a dual service provider, so you're providing waiver services and personal care or CFC services, the reason that you have access to this consumer is because you provide PCS services, not because you provide HAB services. That is the realm of a care coordinator. And even though you do have visibility, you have no expectation, and we field several calls because you don't understand what you're seeing in these areas. But it's because we couldn't really block you off from seeing the other areas, the planned areas and that sort of stuff. So take it as a bonus that you can see it. It's not really intended for you as a service provider other than a care coordinator to do anything there. So if you have questions, the care coordinator is the only one who can make modifications to that record, and a PCS admin. But if your role with your company is case manager and not PCS admin, you shouldn't be making any changes or,
Right.
you know,
Right.
or contacting SDS about what you see there. Contact the care coordinator about what you see, because they're
Right.
charged with keeping that record updated.
So the answer here is that the care coordinator does this work. Others, even though if for some reason, because you provide multiple services, including PCS and you're a PCS admin, you know, seeing it doesn't mean that you're co-creating. You're not co-creating anything. You're not doing any of this work in a person's file or plan. It's only for the care coordinator. So the intention here, um, again, it's not a information system for all. It's not so everybody goes in there and makes changes. The roles are strictly defined. So if people, for whatever reason, would go past those roles and start to do things that they're not authorized to do, then that could potentially be a finding, a quality finding or something like that, quality assurance. So we've done the work to provide functionality and access to the work that you're authorized to do for that person through their being a customer of you and release of information. But a care coordinator manages all this stuff. They'll do all those changes and answer all those questions. There's a question there that maybe Sina and Delight, you might be better at answering than me at this time.
Unfortunately, it's kind of a one-off. It's a very small amount of people, and I don't think that this is
Okay.
the area to really do that in. It would cause more confusion
Okay.
because it's a small amount of population.
Okay. Other questions, thoughts? Do you feel like you got a good introduction to what a care coordinator will be doing and to, your work to support them with that person and support the person with your services? Question says, when are other waiver service providers able to access the Harmony data system info? There are not plans for that at this time. I don't have any estimation of that. All I can say is that it's not planned right now. Other thoughts? Question says, is it okay to share the goal codes with HAB providers to help them with writing the goals in a format that matches what Harmony is looking for? Yeah, I mean, we're hoping that this will help increase our teamwork around those things. I think that you need to do some, I mean, by you, I mean a care coordinator would need to do some good communicating with the provider about what that means and introduce it as like a title to a paragraph or a conversation, or this is what's gonna like what best matches what your person is vocalizing or not, if they're not speaking with words, they're however they're communicating, they let you know that, this is what you're going to use to open up the fields to make the person-centered parts. So yeah, you could share it with them. It is in the handouts today, and it is part of the Care Coordinator Harmony Guide. So we have gotten a few calls from providers who have been, they got that and they were confused, and the call went something like this: "Hey, Kara, a care coordinator handed me this piece of paper and told me to pick these things, and is this what it is? Do I have to use this, or is this all it's going to be? It doesn't make sense to me. Are we not putting in anything person-centered anymore?" Those are the questions that we're getting. So that's why we're having this session. We're having this training is because we want to help you understand what it's for, what it is and what it isn't, and what's required for a plan. So, I mean, I couldn't, as if I'm the care coordinator, I couldn't just hand it to a provider and say, here's what Harmony is looking for. Pick something and give it back. It really, or this is what I have to do now because this is what the state wants. I mean, yeah, that's true, but it's not that only that. It's we want to be able to have some data to make our systems and services better for the people we serve so that we can use this Harmony system to, extract data where the actual work for the person is not, that's the important part. That's the labeling part is what we're going to pull out. So just pick the best one that matches your discussion, or in some cases you could use it to peak the discussion, just start it. Say, what about this particular one? What would that mean to you? That type of conversation. I could see that happening for people. You know, it might be kind of nice to talk about those things with individuals and families and, you know, use it as a point of discussion, but it's not the be all and end all, and it's not the, it is simply a prompt to get to something else, which is the meat and potatoes, the part that we really want to see, the work that will be done for that person. And signing off on that plan means that we do the work for that person. We don't, you know, I know as a provider, you're thinking about, well, how do I document all this? You know, do I just make a, you know, a template that just has that one thing on it? Well, no. I mean, you're going to have to document what it says in the plan, what they're actually going to do for the person, and the interventions. They're going to have to show how they're offered. You know, where the teaching was done, any change in performance, any needs for extra support, what was the outcome of offering that particular objective, what did the staff do, what did the person do. It'll have to have everything that it has now. It's not just, which is where I'm thinking, like I'm explaining, it just doesn't hook into proprietary software like that at all. It's really just the same as it has been. We have, the expectations are anyway. So it's in somewhat of a new format. Other questions, thoughts? So I have a question for you. I just want to find out if I should be emailing everybody. Again, I'm only going to know for those of us who are here under duplicate names. I'm only going to be able to email to the one address that's signed up for us here. How many of us were able to download from the handouts from the session? Just raise your hand if you were able to do so. Okay. Looks like probably a little bit less than half of us were able to download. Okay. That's okay. We can email, and if you get an email with the same thing in it, then you could just delete it, and that's okay too. All right. Question says, will providers still be able to see a full complete plan prior to signing? The answer to that is yes. You should get a complete plan to review before signing.
Yeah, please make sure you get the full thing. Just, yeah,
Yeah.
it comes to you probably digitally in an email though.
Yeah, or DSM or something like that to be sent to you. And
DSM.
then, and you're right. Delight was right. It's really good to remember that, you know, care coordinators are learning in groups. So it's not that everybody's doing this way today or tomorrow. It's progressive. Where do cultural goals fit? Anywhere they want. If the person has a culturally related goal, then if the service is going to support them with that, then if it's the HAB service, then they're going to have to put it within a HAB service that makes sense to support that. Other questions, thoughts, concerns? You are more than welcome to come to our next session too, if you want to. We'll give a little bit more time for our HAB service part, or just to catch up with people who who weren't able to make it today. But you're welcome to come back if you want to. And you're always welcome to send us your questions, sdstraining@alaska.gov. You can send us your questions. If you don't think of a question right now, don't worry. You can always send us a question. We'd be happy to respond to it. sdstraining@alaska.gov, and I put it into our Q&A part. All right, we are down to our last 5 minutes. Any other questions outstanding here for today? If not, we can close a couple minutes early. I'm okay with that too. Questions, thoughts, concerns? Okay, well, it looks like people are dropping off, so I'll go ahead and close our session. We don't have to, go until the very last moment here. Let's go ahead and close our session for today. Look for an email from us, and I really want to thank you for being here with us today to talk about this important topic, the formatting for our support plan through the Harmony data system. Again, take care, and always ask us whatever's on your mind. Ask us and let us know how we can assist you as your training team. And thank you, Sina and Delight, for the wonderful learning objects and your explanation and the training that you do. And thank you to providers for all the work that you do to support the people we serve. Okay, have a wonderful afternoon, everybody. Goodbye for now.